The neon lights of Las Vegas Boulevard cast their familiar glow across the bustling sidewalks as Detective Sarah Martinez pulled up to the Bellagio Hotel on that sweltering July evening in 2019. The call had come in just after 9 p.m. Another missing person case in a city where people disappeared into the maze of casinos and entertainment venues every day. But this one felt different from the moment she stepped into the opulent lobby. Detective Martinez, a well-dressed man in his 50s, approached her, his French accent unmistakable even in those two words. "I am Amélie Dubois. Thank you for coming so quickly." Sarah studied the man before her. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his usually pristine appearance disheveled by hours of worry. Dark circles under his eyes suggested he hadn't slept, and his hands trembled slightly as he reached for his phone to show her a photo. "This is my daughter, Amélie," Henri said, his voice breaking slightly. "She is 26 years old. She came to Las Vegas 3 days ago for a conference on sustainable tourism. She was supposed to call me yesterday morning, Paris time. She never misses our daily calls, Detective, never." The photo showed a striking young woman with shoulder-length auburn hair and bright green eyes. She was smiling at the camera, standing in front of what appeared to be the Eiffel Tower. There was something captivating about her expression, intelligent, adventurous, full of life. "When did you last speak with her?" Sarah asked, pulling out her notepad. "Tuesday evening, your time. She called me from her hotel room, this room actually, room 2847. Henry's voice grew steadier as he focused on the facts. She was excited about her presentation the next day. She mentioned wanting to explore the Strip afterward, maybe catch a show. She's always been independent, Detective, but responsible. This isn't like her." Sarah nodded, making notes. Las Vegas in 2019 was a different beast than it had been even a decade earlier. Social media had transformed how people experienced the city, with Instagram-worthy moments driving tourists to increasingly remote and dangerous locations for the perfect shot. The rise of ride-sharing apps had also changed the landscape. People could disappear into an Uber or Lyft with minimal trace. "Has she posted anything on social media since Tuesday?" Sarah asked. Henry pulled up Instagram on his iPhone. Her last post was Tuesday night, around 11 p.m. Look. The image showed Amélie in the hotel room, dressed in an elegant black dress with the caption, "Ready for Vegas nightlife. Bani Vegas baby. Business trip. Living my best life." The photo had received dozens of likes and comments from friends back in France. Did she mention meeting anyone? Making plans with colleagues from the conference? No specific names. She said the conference attendees seemed nice, but she didn't know anyone personally. She was planning to network during the day and explore on her own in the evenings. Henry paused, scrolling through his phone. "Wait, there's something else. She sent me a text message Wednesday morning that I didn't see until later because of the time difference." He showed Sarah the message, sent at 2:47 a.m. Vegas time. "Papa, met some interesting people tonight. Going to see the real Vegas tomorrow. Don't worry, I'm being careful. Love you." Sarah felt a familiar chill. In her 15 years on the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, she'd learned that real Vegas could mean many things, and most of them weren't good. The city had layers: the glittering tourist facade, the local neighborhoods where real people lived and worked, and the darker underbelly where desperate people made dangerous choices. "Mr. Dubois, I need you to walk me through everything you know about her activities here. Start with her arrival on Sunday." They moved to the hotel's security office, where the head of security, a former police officer named Mike Chen, had already pulled the relevant footage. The screens showed Amelie's arrival on Sunday afternoon. She looked every inch the successful young professional, wheeling her designer luggage through the lobby with confidence. "She checked in at 3:22 p.m., Mike explained. "Used her credit card, showed her passport. Everything normal. She asked the concierge about restaurant recommendations and show tickets. The footage from Monday and Tuesday showed a pattern, Amélie leaving each morning around 8 a.m. in business attire, returning in the early evening, then leaving again around 9 p.m. in more casual clothes. She always returned to her room between midnight and 2 a.m. "Wednesday is where it gets interesting," Mike continued, fast-forwarding to Wednesday morning. "She left the hotel at 10:15 a.m., but this time she had a small backpack instead of her usual purse. And look at what she's wearing. Instead of her professional conference attire, Amélie wore jeans, hiking boots, and a tank top. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she wore sunglasses despite being indoors. She looked like she was going on an adventure," Henri whispered. That's the last time we see her on our cameras, Mike said grimly. She never returned to her room Wednesday night. Sarah studied the final image of Amélie walking out of the hotel lobby. There was something different about her posture, her expression. The confident businesswoman had been replaced by someone who looked excited, nervous. It was hard to tell with the sunglasses. I need to see her room, Sarah said. Room 2847 was exactly as housekeeping had found it Wednesday morning. Amélie's conference materials were neatly arranged on the desk. Her business clothes hung carefully in the closet. But her casual clothes were missing, along with her hiking boots and the small backpack Mike had mentioned. She packed for whatever she was planning to do, Sarah observed, examining the room carefully. This wasn't spontaneous. Henry sat heavily on the bed, holding one of his daughter's scarves. Detective, you have to understand. Amélie is brilliant, but she's also, how do you say, she seeks experiences, real experiences. She's traveled alone through Southeast Asia, hiked in Patagonia. She doesn't take foolish risks, but she's not afraid of adventure either. Sarah found Amélie's laptop on the desk, still plugged in. Mr. Dubois, I'll need permission to examine this. Of course, anything that helps. As Sarah powered up the laptop, she thought about the thousands of tourists who came to Las Vegas every day, seeking their own version of the real Vegas. Most found it in the controlled excitement of the casinos and shows. But some, like Amélie apparently had, went looking for something more authentic, more dangerous. The laptop revealed Amélie's methodical nature. Her browser history showed research into Las Vegas history, local hiking trails, and underground tours. But there was something else. Searches for hidden Las Vegas, locals-only experiences, and off-the-beaten-path Nevada. She was definitely planning something, Sarah murmured, scrolling through the search history. Then she found it. A private message thread on a travel forum called Authentic Vegas Experiences. The conversation was with someone using the handle Desert Guide V. The messages started Tuesday evening. Desert Guide Faves. Saw your post about wanting to see the real Vegas. I can show you places tourists never see. Abandoned mines, ghost towns, the desert at sunrise. Interested? Amélie travels. That sounds amazing. I'm only here until Friday, though. Desert Guide. Wow. Perfect. Wednesday afternoon? I'll pick you up at the Bellagio at 11 a.m. Bring water, good shoes, and a sense of adventure. Amélie travels. How will I recognize you? Desert Guide. LV. I'll be in a white pickup truck. Look for the Nevada plates and the hiking gear in the back. Trust me, you'll love what I have to show you. Sarah felt her stomach drop. She'd seen this pattern before. Predators who targeted tourists, especially solo female travelers, by promising authentic local experiences. The fact that Desert Guide LV had suggested meeting at 11 a.m. just before Amélie was last seen leaving the hotel was too much of a coincidence. Mr. Dubois, Sarah said carefully, I think your daughter may have gone with someone she met online, someone who promised to show her hidden parts of Nevada. Henri's face went pale. You think someone took her? I think she went willingly with someone she shouldn't have trusted. But don't give up hope. We're going to find her. As Sarah prepared to leave the hotel, she couldn't shake the feeling that this case was going to be more complicated than a simple tourist abduction. Amélie Dubois was smart, experienced, and careful. If she had disappeared, it was either because she'd encountered something truly unexpected, or because she'd made a decision that had consequences she couldn't have foreseen. The Las Vegas desert was vast, unforgiving, and full of places where someone could disappear forever. But it was also a place where secrets had a way of eventually surfacing, sometimes when you least expected them. 6 months had passed since Amélie Dubois vanished into the Nevada desert, and Detective Sarah Martinez had exhausted nearly every lead. The case file on her desk had grown thick with witness statements, phone records, and forensic reports, but none of them had brought her any closer to finding the missing French tourist. The investigation had consumed Sarah's winter. She'd traced Desert Guide LV through multiple fake email accounts and VPN services, only to hit dead ends. The travel forum administrators had cooperated fully, but their user had covered his digital tracks expertly. Phone records showed that Amélie's phone had gone dead somewhere near Red Rock Canyon around 2 p.m. on that Wednesday, but extensive searches of the area had yielded nothing. Any new developments? Detective James Rodriguez asked, settling into the chair across from Sarah's desk with his morning coffee. James had been her partner for 3 years, and he'd watched her become increasingly obsessed with the Dubois case. "Henri calls every week," Sarah said, not looking up from the crime scene photos spread across her desk. "He's hired 2 different private investigators. Both came up with the same nothing we did." The case had attracted media attention, both locally and internationally. French tourist vanishes in Vegas desert had been a headline in papers from Las Vegas to Paris. The story had all the elements that captured public imagination: a beautiful young woman, a mysterious online contact, and the vast, dangerous Nevada wilderness. "You know what bothers me most?" Sarah continued, finally looking up at James. "Amélie was smart, really smart. She'd traveled alone all over the world. She wasn't naive about the dangers. Maybe that's exactly why she let her guard down," James suggested. "She was confident in her ability to handle herself." Sarah had considered that possibility many times. Amélie's travel blog, which they'd discovered during the investigation, showed a young woman who sought authentic experiences over tourist attractions. She'd written about sleeping in Mongolian yurts, hiking alone through Peruvian mountains, and navigating the back streets of Bangkok. Vegas should have been easy compared to those adventures. The forensic analysis of Amélie's laptop had revealed more details about her communication with desert guide LV. The messages showed someone who seemed knowledgeable about Nevada's history and geography. He'd mentioned specific abandoned mining towns, described the beauty of desert sunrises, and demonstrated familiarity with hiking trails that weren't on any tourist maps. He knew exactly what would appeal to her, Sarah had told Henri during one of their regular phone calls. He presented himself as a local expert who could show her the Nevada that tourists never see. The investigation had led them to interview dozens of tour guides, hiking enthusiasts, and locals who frequented the desert areas around Las Vegas. They'd checked with every legitimate tour company, outdoor gear shop, and hiking club in the region. No one recognized the description of desert guide while LV or admitted to knowing anyone who matched his online persona. Sarah's phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. The caller ID showed Amélie Dubois. "Detective Martinez, I hope I'm not calling too early." Henri's voice carried the weariness of months of sleepless nights. "Not at all, Mr. Dubois. How are you holding up?" "I'm flying back to Las Vegas next week. It's been 6 months, and I need to see the places where she might have gone. The private investigators have given me some locations to check." Sarah felt a familiar pang of sympathy for the man who had become a regular part of her life. Henry had aged visibly during their video calls, the stress of his daughter's disappearance etching new lines around his eyes. "Mr. Dubois, I understand your need to do something, but please be careful. The desert can be dangerous, especially for someone not familiar with it. I've hired a local guide, a legitimate one this time, someone the private investigator recommended. We're going to search some of the more remote areas that the police couldn't cover extensively." After hanging up, Sarah stared at the map of Nevada pinned to her wall. Red pins marked all the locations they'd searched. Blue pins showed where Amélie's phone had last pinged cell towers, and yellow pins indicated possible routes desert guide LV might have taken. The map looked like a connect-the-dots puzzle with no clear picture emerging. "You know what we haven't considered," James said, studying the map over Sarah's shoulder. "What if this wasn't random? What if someone specifically targeted Amélie? You mean someone who knew she was coming to Vegas? Think about it. She was at a conference with maybe 200 people. Her presentation was listed in the program. Someone could have researched the attendees, found her social media, learned about her love of adventure travel." Sarah felt a spark of possibility. They'd focused so much on Desert Guide LV as a random predator that they hadn't fully explored the idea of a targeted approach. "The conference attendee list?" "Exactly. We interviewed some of them, but we were asking about whether they'd seen Amélie at the conference. We weren't asking if anyone had seemed particularly interested in her or her travel experiences." Sarah pulled out her phone and called the conference organizers. Within an hour, she had a complete list of attendees, speakers, and vendors. The Sustainable Tourism Summit had attracted people from around the world: tour operators, hotel managers, environmental consultants, and travel bloggers. As she scrolled through the names, one caught her attention: Marcus Webb, listed as an independent adventure tourism consultant from Henderson, Nevada. Henderson was a Las Vegas suburb, close enough for someone to be familiar with the local desert areas. "James, look at this," Sarah said, pointing to Webb's name on the list. "Local guy, works in adventure tourism. He would have been at the conference. could have seen Amelie's presentation, learned about her interests. They ran Marcus Webb through their databases. He was 43 years old, divorced, with a clean criminal record but several civil complaints related to his tour guide business. Former clients had accused him of taking them to dangerous locations without proper safety equipment, and his business license had been suspended twice for safety violations. "This could be our guy," James said, reading over Webb's file. "Look at this. One of the complaints mentions him using online forums to recruit clients for extreme desert experiences." Sarah felt the familiar rush of a breakthrough. "Let's pay Mr. Webb a visit." Marcus Webb lived in a modest ranch house in Henderson, about 20 minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. The neighborhood was typical of Las Vegas suburbs: newer construction, desert landscaping, and the kind of quiet that came from being surrounded by vast, empty spaces. Webb answered the door wearing hiking clothes and a suspicious expression. He was tall and lean, with the weathered skin of someone who spent a lot of time outdoors. His eyes were pale blue, almost colorless, and they darted nervously between Sarah and James. "Marcus Webb," Sarah showed her badge. "I'm Detective Martinez. This is Detective Rodriguez. We'd like to ask you some questions about the Sustainable Tourism Summit you attended last July." "I already talked to police about that missing French girl," Webb said, not inviting them in. "I told them I never met her. We'd like to go over that again, if you don't mind." "May we come in?" Webb hesitated, then stepped aside. The house was sparsely furnished but clean. Maps covered most of the wall space, topographical maps of Nevada, Utah, and Arizona, with various routes marked in different colored pens. Hiking and camping gear was neatly organized in one corner. "You do a lot of desert hiking," James observed. "It's my business. I take people to places they can't find on their own." "Places like abandoned mines, ghost towns?" Sarah asked, watching Webb's reaction carefully. "Sometimes. Depends what the client wants." Sarah pulled out a photo of Amélie. "Are you sure you never met this woman? Never spoke with her at the conference?" Webb glanced at the photo, and Sarah caught something, a flicker of recognition, quickly suppressed. "Like I said, I never met her." "What about online? Do you use travel forums to find clients?" "Sometimes. It's a competitive business." "Ever use the handle Desert Guide, Ilvi?" This time Webb's reaction was unmistakable. His face went pale and his hands clenched into fists. "I want you to leave, now. Mr. Webb, we can do this here, or we can do it at the station. Your choice." Webb sat down heavily on his couch, his defiance crumbling. "I didn't hurt her, I swear to God, I didn't hurt her." Sarah felt her heart racing. After 6 months, they finally had a break. "Tell us what happened, Marcus." "I saw her presentation at the conference. She was talking about authentic travel experiences, how tourists should connect with local cultures instead of just visiting attractions. She was exactly the kind of client I'd been looking for." "So you contacted her online?" "I researched her first, found her travel blog, her social media. She'd done some serious adventure travel, the kind of stuff that showed she wasn't just a weekend hiker. I thought she could handle what I had to show her." "Which was what?" Webb stood up and walked to one of his maps, pointing to an area marked with red ink. "There's a place out past Red Rock, way off any trail, an old mining operation from the 1920s. The mine shafts go deep, and there are buildings that are still mostly intact. It's dangerous. That's why I don't take just anyone there." Sarah studied the map. The location was at least 30 miles from where Amélie's phone had last pinged. "You took her there?" "I picked her up at the Bellagio like we arranged. She was excited, asking lots of questions about Nevada history. We drove out to the site, and I showed her around. She was taking pictures, asking if she could write about it for her blog." "Then what happened?" Webb's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "There was an accident." Marcus Webb's confession sent shockwaves through the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. After 6 months of dead ends and false leads, Detective Sarah Martinez finally had answers, but they weren't the answers she'd hoped for. "She wanted to go down into one of the mine shafts," Webb continued, his voice shaking. "I told her it was too dangerous, that the supports were old and unstable, but she was determined. She said she'd explored caves in Vietnam and mines in Peru, that she knew how to be careful." Sarah and James exchanged glances. This matched everything they knew about Amélie's personality: adventurous, confident, perhaps overconfident in her abilities. "I should have said no," Webb went on. "I should have just driven her back to the hotel. But she was so enthusiastic, and she signed a waiver. I had rope, headlamps, basic safety gear. I thought it would be okay if we were careful." "What happened in the mine?" Sarah asked gently. Webb walked to his window, staring out at the desert landscape. We went down about 50 feet. The shaft was stable at first, and Amélie was taking pictures, making notes for her blog. She was talking about how this was exactly the kind of authentic experience she'd been looking for. He paused, his shoulders sagging. Then we heard a creaking sound. I knew immediately what it meant. The old timber supports were failing. I yelled for her to get to the rope, but it was too late. The whole section collapsed. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Was she? I don't know, the collapse separated us. I was near the entrance and managed to get out, but she was deeper in the shaft. I called her name for hours, but there was no response. The whole area was unstable. Every time I tried to dig, more debris would fall. Why didn't you call for help? James asked, his voice tight with controlled anger. Webb turned around, tears streaming down his face. Because I knew I'd go to prison. My business was already in trouble. I'd had safety violations before. Taking someone to an unmarked mine shaft without proper permits, without a safety team. I knew they'd blame me for her death. So, you just left her there? I tried to dig her out for 2 days. I went back with better equipment, but the whole shaft had collapsed. There was no way she could have survived. I convinced myself that calling for help wouldn't bring her back. It would just destroy my life too. Sarah had to fight the urge to arrest Webb on the spot. Instead, she focused on getting the information they needed. Where exactly is this mine? Webb showed them the location on his map. A remote area about 40 miles northeast of Las Vegas, accessible only by four-wheel drive vehicles and hiking trails. The site wasn't on any official maps, and the old mining claims had been abandoned for decades. We need you to take us there, Sarah said. I can't. I haven't been back since it happened. I can give you GPS coordinates, but I can't go back there. Within hours, Sarah had organized a search and rescue operation. The Clark County Fire Department provided specialized equipment for mine rescue operations, and the coroner's office prepared for the recovery of human remains. Amélie Dubois, who had just arrived in Las Vegas, insisted on being present despite Sarah's attempts to dissuade him. The drive to the mine site took 2 hours over increasingly rough terrain. The last 5 miles required four-wheel drive vehicles, and the final approach had to be made on foot. The Nevada desert stretched endlessly in all directions, a landscape of red rock formations and scattered Joshua trees under the blazing sun. There, Webb said quietly, pointing to a cluster of weathered wooden structures barely visible against the desert backdrop. That's where I brought her. The abandoned mine looked like something from a Western movie. Rotting wooden buildings, rusted equipment, and several dark openings in the hillside that marked the entrances to mine shafts. Warning signs, faded by decades of sun and wind, were posted around the area, but they were barely legible. "Which shaft?" asked Captain Torres from the fire department. Webb led them to what appeared to be the main entrance, now completely blocked by fallen timber and rock. "This is where we went down. The collapse happened about 50 feet in. The rescue team immediately began setting up equipment. Ground-penetrating radar would help them map the underground structure and locate any voids where someone might have survived or where remains might be found. It was delicate work. The entire area was unstable, and any aggressive digging could cause further collapses. Henri stood apart from the activity, staring at the mine entrance where his daughter had disappeared. Sarah approached him carefully. "Mr. Dubois, I know this is incredibly difficult. Are you sure you want to be here?" "I need to be here," Henri said quietly. "I need to see where she spent her last moments. She was so excited about this trip, about experiencing the real America. I just never imagined—" "She died doing what she loved," Sarah offered, though the words felt inadequate. "That's what people say, isn't it? But she didn't die climbing Everest or exploring the Amazon. She died because a man was too greedy and too cowardly to prioritize her safety over his business." The search continued for 3 days. The rescue team used specialized cameras to explore the collapsed shaft, carefully removing debris when it was safe to do so. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, they found what they were looking for. "Detective Martinez," Captain Torres called out, "we've found human remains." The recovery was painstaking work. Amélie's body was found in a small void created by fallen timber, about 60 feet from the mine entrance. She had been carrying her camera and notebook, both damaged but partially intact. The coroner's preliminary examination suggested she had died from trauma sustained during the collapse, likely within minutes of the accident. Henri identified his daughter's remains through personal effects, a distinctive ring she always wore, and a necklace he had given her for her 21st birthday. The formal identification would be completed through dental records, but there was no doubt they had found Amélie Dubois. Marcus Webb was arrested and charged with involuntary manslaughter and reckless endangerment. His trial, 6 months later, would reveal the full extent of his negligence. Taking clients to dangerous locations without proper safety equipment, failing to obtain required permits, and operating without adequate insurance. Most damning was his decision to abandon Amélie and cover up the accident rather than immediately calling for help. As Sarah drove Henri back to Las Vegas after the recovery, they traveled in silence for most of the journey. Finally, Henri spoke. "Detective, I want to thank you for not giving up, for bringing her home. I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry we couldn't bring her home alive. She lived an extraordinary life in 26 years, Henri said, looking out at the desert landscape. She saw more of the world than most people see in a lifetime. I wish she had been more careful about who she trusted." The case officially closed 3 months later when Webb pled guilty to all charges. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution to the Dubois family. The abandoned mine was permanently sealed by the Bureau of Land Management, and new warning signs were posted throughout the area. But for Sarah, the case never really ended. She kept Amélie's photo on her desk as a reminder of the importance of her work and the real people behind every case file. She also began working with local tourism boards to educate visitors about the dangers of unlicensed tour operators and the importance of proper safety precautions when exploring Nevada's wilderness. Henri returned to France to bury his daughter, but he stayed in touch with Sarah. He established a foundation in Amélie's name to promote safe adventure tourism and to help families of missing persons navigate the complex process of international investigations. 4 years later, Sarah would receive a call that would bring the case back into the spotlight in an unexpected way. But that's a story for another day. The truth about Amélie Dubois' disappearance was ultimately simpler and more tragic than the elaborate theories that had circulated in the media. She hadn't been the victim of a sophisticated predator or an international conspiracy. She had simply trusted the wrong person at the wrong time and paid the ultimate price for someone else's negligence and cowardice. In the end, Sarah reflected, most mysteries aren't really mysterious at all. They're just human stories of poor choices, bad luck, and the consequences that follow when people prioritize their own interests over the safety and well-being of others. That concludes our 3-part story about the disappearance of Amélie Dubois in Las Vegas. If you found this story compelling and want to hear more real-life mysteries and investigations, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for daily stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. We love hearing from our viewers around the world. Let us know in the comments which city or country you're watching from. Your engagement helps us bring you more of these fascinating true stories. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. We publish new stories every single day, covering everything from unsolved mysteries to incredible survival stories to cases that shocked the world. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow with another story that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. Thanks for watching.